Hey, what's up guys? So we're gonna be talking about what is probably my favorite thing to talk about when it comes to sprinting mechanics and getting more in depth into the advanced concept of sprinting. It's gonna go a lot into the foot strike, and the really goal of this is not gonna be to give a bunch of elaborate names or getting very scientific into the language and the words being used, but really get very in-depth into the concepts of what we're talking about when it comes to how we're using the foot to be able to run faster, and the entire ankle joint really, and how that impacts the hip, the upper body, and just make it so hopefully you can take a couple things that you can implement into your sprinting. It's obviously a lot easier to be able to understand some of this stuff when we are in person and I'm able to talk to you one-on-one, but I still think that by watching this video, especially if you have some notes, you can maybe jot down a few things that really make a lot of sense to you that you could try out when it comes to your practice and see some great results. And so the first thing that I really want to talk about here is looking from the back view when you're sprinting and getting a little bit more in depth into what you should be seeing or what you want to be seeing when you are striking the ground. And what happens is as the foot ends up coming and striking the ground, I think it's important that we want to be able to be, one, as far forward on the foot as possible. Two, we want to be able to absorb with as much of our weight staying forward as possible, while also being able to generate the most amount of force into the ground. So in order to do that effectively, what we have to be able to do is first understand what we're doing before the foot strike. The higher we can get the foot, and I think this ends up being an important angle that you could use when it comes to striking the ground, is how much height do we get within the ankle to then how much change happens before the ankle strikes. A lot of times we'll see some of the top sprinters like Usain Bolt, Keen Blake's another great one in the current circuit that does a great job of being able to get a lot of it. We even saw this with Oblique Seville in his last race when he ran that 983, getting a lot of height in the toe and then getting a ton of action into the ground. This is how we generate a lot of force, and then when we absorb, or how we absorb, gives us a great understanding of our turnover speed or our ability to be quick off of the ground. And so when we could get a great degree of angular velocity and even angle change in the foot when it comes to the foot strike, that's going to be a great way to be able to, one, and most probably importantly, land as far forward as possible. Once we start landing on the heels, right, we'll see a lot of people when they're first starting off will be more heel strikers, and that's going to really make it difficult to have great turnover. One of the very basic things we want to understand when it comes to sprinting is we need to be more forward as we're striking the ground. Now, when it comes to what we should be seeing from the back as the foot is striking the ground, is we should really be seeing a great ability to absorb through the entirety of the leg, and really most importantly through the ankle. So we'll see when people are not able to do this well is some type of collapsing inwards with the foot, maybe with the knee, some type of lowering of the hip, a collapsing of the hip, in comparison to being able to maintain good height as the foot strikes the ground. So when you're able to do this well, what happens is when your foot's striking, you're able to then absorb, almost like you're twisting. You can see with my leg how I'm going like this. This is almost how you want to feel your leg striking the ground as that foot hits, to make it so then you can keep as much weight forward as possible. Because what happens is if we are collapsing, or if our weight's going inwards like this, then that's just making it so now our weight is shifting backwards, which goes back to, if our weight is on the heel, we're not going to be as quick off of the ground. So we want to be able to maintain a large amount of our weight onto the front part of the foot. Again, best way to be able to do that is as we're absorbing, kind of absorb through the outside part of the foot and maintain that arch in the foot. One of the more maybe complex words I want to use and go into is just going to be the pronation, which is when the foot kind of comes inwards, and supination, which is when the foot goes outwards. And so what we're doing as the foot strikes the ground, it wants to be in a very pronated or flat position prior to foot strike, so then as the foot hits, we can get into a more supinated position, which is how we want to absorb. A lot of times what we'll see is when athletes are crossing over, then we'll have them land in more of a supinated position and then go into a pronated position, which is really dangerous, especially in field sports. But we'll also see a lot of times athletes will just be a lot more kind of supinated at foot strike, which will make it so then when the foot hits, will immediately collapse inwards, which makes it a lot more difficult to be, again, quick off of the ground. A lot of these things are going to be really getting more in depth into how much foot contact time we have, because the quicker we can get the foot off the ground, then the more the foot's going to be up underneath during that leg cycle to then make it so then as we cycle through, we could get that height in the toe to effectively strike the ground. And it's all about building up that speed. So once we start getting back here with the foot, then as we cycle through, we just don't have enough time to be able to get the toe up and then strike back on the ground, with the foot being effectively both underneath us and our weight being on the front part of the foot. You can still be fast here. It's not like this is the end of the world or there's only one way to do it. There's a lot of ways to be able to be fast, but when it comes to being really elite when it comes to sprinting, these are the concepts that we see time and time again. Yeah, there's a few people that are outliers when it comes to some of these very basic fundamentals in the foot and in the foot strike, but what we see from a lot of the top athletes, what we see from Usain Bolt and Johan Blake and Noah Lyles and a lot of, again, these top sprinters, is what we're talking about here, which is just a great control of the foot, of the ankle prior to foot strike and during foot strike, to make it so then you can effectively get off the ground. And once you can start to identify some of this stuff, it's a great way for you to be able to effectively get a lot faster in a very short period of time. Because when you look to see when your foot is, let's say, collapsing a little bit more on one side, or you're falling a little bit further back into the heel on one of your feet. For me, my left foot, I spend a little bit more time on the ground than the right foot. And so by just getting more stability, more control, I pronate a little bit more on the left side. I have a little bit more hamstring issues or hamstring tightness on the left side. And so for me, I put a big emphasis to be able to help me in getting faster in how much time I'm able to transition off of the ground there, because once you can start to do that, you can see improvements right away when it comes to my top speed, when it comes to my acceleration, because that's really where it ends up being a big difference. Where if I can land on, again, my left foot and be up and off the ground during my acceleration at 0.12 seconds, then my next step, the best opportunity to do this would be like my fourth step. Then in my sixth step, then if I can get it down to 0.1, and then my eighth step be able to get under 0.1, now I'm setting myself up to run a 40 that's a lot closer to like a 4.5, where if I'm at 0.17 on my fourth step, 0.14 on my sixth step, 0.12 on my eighth step, now I'm gonna run 4.8. And it's just those little differences when it comes to acceleration, because if you can't effectively get to your top speed, those first 5 to 7 steps, then that's gonna be a huge predictor when it comes to your ability to get to top speed. After 7 steps, you really have given a lot of your cards when it comes to how fast you're gonna be able to go. You don't see guys that are running 1.8 in the first 10 go and run a 4.5 40. And so if there's people, if you're watching this and you're saying I want to run a faster 40, then I would look at your 10 and see exactly where you're at there. If you're running a low 1.6 or sub 1.6, then you have an opportunity to run 4.5. If you don't, then you're not going to run 4.5, and you should really be focusing on that first 10 yards and your ability to accelerate through those first 10 yards, instead of working out a ton in the weight room, instead of trying to do a bunch of squats, instead of trying to do a bunch of jumps or whatever. I think it could be very effective for a lot of people doing some of these Instagram drills and stuff like that are important when you have the right information to apply it to. So for me, I do the A skips, B skips, but when I'm doing that, I'm really concentrating on what I'm doing with my left foot. So then as I'm hitting the ground, as I'm striking the ground, I'm very intentional with how fast I can get it right back up, and what I'm doing with my ankle to then make it so that I can strike the ground again. I mean, it's both left and right side, but I definitely like to focus on my left side when I do single leg jumps. I like to feel how I land on my left side. I do single leg broad jumps a ton because I could feel my right side, I could just do it so much better. I have so much more control. I land, I transition forward, I am able to push right back off. My left side, when I land, it just doesn't feel as balanced, doesn't feel as controlled. So it's one of those things, you got to constantly work on it. You're not going to perfect it. The goal is to get towards perfection, or you're working towards perfection. It's not to actually achieve perfection, right? You're never going to actually achieve it, but if you can continue to push for it, then you're going to get a lot better. And so from there, what we want to be able to talk about here is just going to be when our foot is striking the ground, just being able to maximize the toe off and how fast we're able to toe off. Because what happens is when our foot's striking, we have to be able to be more active within the ankle. If we're not able to generate a lot of power into the foot strike and then be able to very quickly push off, then we're not going to be able to cover the right amount of distance when we are sprinting. We have to be able to get the foot down and, again, absorb, keep that weight forward, make sure we're landing on the outside part of the foot. And I think a part that goes into that is going to be how are we swinging our arms. If we are swinging our arms here, boom, as my foot's striking the ground, I'm going to go and probably have this type of thing happen. Okay, if my arms are going here. Sometimes people will go and pull here because they're kind of turning out with the foot, and so that helps them stay forward. So it's one of those things where sometimes this arm swing pulling off to the side is not bad, because with how your foot strikes the ground, if the foot's more turned out to the side, that can help you stay forward. But there's a lot of times where we see these types of pulls, this type of extra action makes it so then our weight is coming inward. So we have to be able to understand, as that foot striking the ground, we're very effective in how we're using the arm to make it so not only are we in sync with the timing of it, so with the foot striking as that wrist is passing through the hip, but we also want to be able to understand that as that foot hits, we have to be aggressive in the push off. I see so many people who put such an emphasis on how you're striking the ground and getting the toes up and all these types of things, and it's all great information. I'm not taking away from the quality of the information. It's just you only have one part of it. It's like if you're doing a math problem and you go and you solve all the parts of it that are just in the parentheses, great, but you miss out on the stuff that's outside of the parentheses. So you didn't do the whole problem, you just did the part that's in the parentheses, and while you solved it, you didn't get the answer because you only did part of the problem. It's a similar type of thing here, where it's like we need to be able to one thing is strike the ground, and it's very hard to strike the ground. That's why so many people put an emphasis on it, because you have to be able to do that well. But a big part of being able to do that is how well we're able to push off the ground and really maximizing the range within the ankle there, to make it so then as we come and cycle back through, we can get back into having a large amount of force on the ground. I see so many athletes, they first come in here, they start working on the treadmill, they start doing the acceleration, and wide variety of different issues, hip issues, hamstring issues, just want to get faster, and it's all here on the backside, right? Toe down, no push off, but cycle through, really trying to generate all this power into the ground. And it's great that they're able to generate so much power on the ground. You could hear it, like on the treadmill, just thud, 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 thud. It's not push, it's not striking the ground, it's just a thud. It's a thick, kind of dull sound, where it wants to be a very springy sound when you hear somebody running, where it's like, you hear the foot strike, but you also hear the push off. You hear it when you know it when you hear it. You hear the power, but you also hear the push, and you see somebody just easily able to go from point A to point B on the track, whether they're at the warm-ups or at their top speed. You could hear that sound, and it's the right sound when it comes to how somebody is just effectively using their ankles and their feet to strike. And again, a lot of it has to do with how we are here. That's why I started off, if you remember the beginning of the video, with how we are controlling the range through the ankle. But we miss part of it, 50% of it, if we don't get the push off as well, and we don't have that effective cycle to get back up underneath and then get back into the foot strike. So this is where bounds come into play. This is where, again, the jumps, the broad jumps, it's really important to be able to connect to that push off there to make it so then we can get back into cycling and then striking the ground. We got to be able to control the arms as well. I know I kind of went over that point very quickly, but again, I see a lot of people that miss out on their ability to run fast because they're doing something off with the arms that makes it so then their balance is thrown off. So when you're watching yourself, this is a lot of times seen best from the front or from the back. You could see yourself be ineffective with what you're doing, whether your hands are going off to the side or if you're not getting the type of range coming straight up and through. I do like the idea of, as you're coming up, you kind of see this with Usain Bolt, is as he's coming up, he's keeping the hand kind of above the hips, and then as he pulls back, he gets the hand coming straight back, and he just has that kind of natural kind of sway here. So it's like that type of movement, right? So notice how my hand's coming up, but then as I'm pulling back, I'm getting kind of a downward movement. That's what makes it so then his shoulders are kind of moving like that. And again, this isn't something like you have to run like this, but it's a good way of seeing somebody that does it very smooth one side to the other, and somebody that obviously made it so it works. There's plenty of people that, like Kenny Bednarik, keeps it really tight here and is just not very side to side at all. To me, that's the most effective. It's the simplest, it's the easiest to be able to perfect, because you can't really do too much that's going to throw you off. Noah Lyles gets a lot more range in his arms. We can see how that impacts that leg distance and how much stride he gets during his top speed. But it has a negative impact on his ability to accelerate because he's so long in his arms, he has to spend a lot of time with each one of those steps. So it takes him a lot longer to get going. Once he gets going, he's one of the fastest in the world. But this is where you can see how the arm makes a big difference. Christian Coleman, very quick with the arms. Trayvon Bromell, very quick with the arms. Shane Thompson, very quick with the arms. Very, very elite starters, and that's a big reason why, is because they're very, very quick, especially from the beginning, and that makes it so they're able to get going a lot quicker, and how that translates into the top speed. So you want to be able to take this information. Again, I hope some of this stuff applies, maybe bookmark some of it, maybe try to utilize the things that really make sense. Again, I wanted to get in depth into this. I didn't want to make it so complex that it was going over a lot of your guys' heads. Hopefully it didn't. Hopefully it made a lot of sense. If you guys have more questions based off of some of this stuff we're talking about, leave that in the comments down below. Thanks for watching for as long as you did. I really appreciate it. Like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon.